Networks don't talk about it. Government can't tax it. But sports betting is a $200 billion a year business.
That's a major U.S. Supreme Court ruling that could open the door for legalized sports betting all across the country.
The Supreme Court is giving the green light for states to determine on their own whether they want to legalize sports gambling.
Tell Donaghy's next pick is good for 20 grand, but I need him to guarantee a win, okay? I need a lock.
He's not that fucking good.
No, Tommy, he has to. All right, he has to, or else they're going to kill me. Do you realize this, Tommy? They're going to fucking kill me. I can't afford to gamble anymore. I need a fucking lock.
And we're in. It is Sunday morning. Interesting time on Sunday morning. 6:30 Central, 7:30 out on the East Coast. Out on the West Coast, they're just wrapping up bar close. It is 4:30. And welcome in. It is Lock Talk special Sunday morning edition. O'Kane here. Joey couldn't make it this week. We are going to have a playoff breakdown next week, so no worries about that. Very excited to get rolling with this. We had two games last night, very interesting games. Pittsburgh does get the victory over the Ravens, and we see the Texans stamp their victory over the Colts. We're going to get into Sunday action, but before we do, a few things that I wanted to discuss. I wanted to talk about the app leaderboard. Resetting every month now. We do have yours truly sitting in the top 5, so come and dethrone me. Hoop Drunk is going to be back 3 times a week in February and obviously March as we tread on through college basketball. You can find all my college basketball action. I'm just posting on Lock Talk right now. I'm not really doing a whole lot in the realm of basketball content. One thing I wanted to update for people in Wisconsin, and I have a lot of my viewership is Wisconsin because that's where I'm from. And the hardest thing we have is not having legalized sports books. I wanted to just touch on an update on some that are available because I just learned of one over the weekend as I made a trip. The first one, which one I actually didn't know until looking this up, PointsBet Sportsbook has moved in at Northern Waters up in Watersmeet, Michigan. It's a 3-hour drive northwest of Green Bay. Pretty decent resort. Seems like they've got some golf, but they do have a PointsBet Sportsbook. That's a pretty cool option. Island Resort Casino, which is one that a lot of people know as there over the weekend, just found out they're hooked up with Sports Illustrated. So it is now the Sports Illustrated Sportsbook at Island Resort Casino, 2 hours north of Green Bay. Obviously, in Green Bay, we've got the Oneida Sportsbook as they continue to do tweaks to their odds that they have available. I'm not really going to speak much on it. The Book at Turtle Creek, I've kind of talked about them before. They're up in St. Croix. It's 3 hours, 45 minutes west of Green Bay, actually, out towards the Twin Cities. Kind of an off-grid spot, but if you're out in that area, it definitely works. And then the Potawatomi Sportsbook at Potawatomi Casino in Milwaukee is going strong right now. They just have the sports bar and like a temporary sports book, but when they turn the Northern Lights Theater into a sports book, it's going to be fucking crazy. I can't absolutely wait for that. It's nice to have a Vegas style one right here in Wisconsin. So let's talk week 18. Already talked about it. Steelers after the win, they get in with a Bills or Jags loss today. We'll talk about both those games in a little bit. It's a little bit of an outside looking in scenario for them. But, I mean, the Bills could easily lose to the Dolphins. It's hard to say. Steelers fans, they're in for, or currently in the middle of the roughest 24 hours you could probably expect for a football team. Texans get the victory. I love this. I had the Texans outright in this one. Needed it after I had the Steelers team total. I ended up splitting just about even, I think, within $7. So, yeah, not a bad Saturday night. Great football all day long. Obviously, slop fest. But anytime you're getting Pittsburgh and the Ravens, you just kind of roll with what you got. So let's talk about Sunday. Sunday, I'm going to talk about all of the games going on. I'm going to talk about what's at stake. That's obviously a huge factor today. What the odds are, my opinion on each game. I'm not going to actually have an opinion on each game, but I'm at least going to address it. And I'm going to start with one in the NFC South that holds a ton of water. It's Bucks at Panthers. Looking at what's at stake, you got to mention it no matter how depressing it is. Carolina does not own the number 1 pick. That is going to Chicago. So for them, this game really doesn't mean a whole lot. This probably is just more or less you want to see Bryce Young play well and obviously stay healthy. You look at Tampa in this scenario. Bucks fans, you should feel pretty good this morning. They beat the Panthers, they're NFC South champs. If you tie and the Saints lose or tie, you still win it. The wild card scenario is a little bit goofy. With a loss, a Seattle loss, and a Green Bay loss or tie, they're in. But to me, this one just really, it's a win and get in for the Bucks. And against the Panthers, you got to take care of business, and that leads me to the odds. In my opinion, I'm laying 4 with Tampa Bay in this scenario. I think Tampa is playing really, really good football. I think they're the best team in the NFC South by margin, despite how tight that race is. They're 7-1 against the spread on the road this season. They've done really, really well. Bank of America, you can get tickets to those games for like $6. There's absolutely no home field advantage for Carolina. Again, nothing to play for. I have a unit on Tampa Bay. I think that is a terrific spot to bet Tampa. And at worst, you can always use them as a parlay piece. I think they're a solid parlay piece, especially today. Looking Browns and Bengals next, looking at what's at stake in this one, not a ton. The Browns are locked into the 5 seed. They're going to play the winner of the AFC South. That we know for sure. Cincy, absolute worst spot. There is no way around it. Best they can draft is an unlikely 12th pick. More than likely, they're going to be picking between 15 and 18 when you lost your franchise quarterback. Winning games was fun for a little bit. Now it's kind of kicking you in the ass because you could easily land over 500 and just be picking miserably at 18th and not make the playoffs. So to me in this one, though, if you want to bet Jeff Driscoll versus Jake Browning, be my guest. This is going to be one of the many games that I'm passing on this weekend. If you bet it, just know it's supposed to be a little bit windy. Don't get trigger happy with some low passing and receiving totals. I know there's Jamar Chase props out there. I think he's plus 150 to score a touchdown. Tyler Boyd. I mean, all these guys are still available on the board. How long are they going to play? I can't imagine it's long at all for a very, very sad end to a Bengals sad season. And then, that's obviously not their fault. If Joe Burrow's playing, this team is obviously competing, maybe not with the Ravens for the top of the division, but they're definitely in the wild card scenario. Let's talk Vikings-Lions. I said I was up at the island over the weekend up in Michigan, had a chance to sit in the sports book for the end of that Lions game. Holy shit, I have not seen that many drunk people that angry in quite some time. Hopefully not until later this afternoon. Go to the Packer game. Talk about that in a bit. Detroit. They would need the Eagles to lose to the Giants and the Cowboys to lose the Commanders, and that would be the only way they get to the 2 seed. It's not going to happen. They're locked in more or less at 3. The Vikings, they have 2 scenarios that can get them in. They both involve a win, obviously. The first would be a Packer loss and a Seahawk loss. If those 3 things happen, they would need either a Bucks loss to the Panthers or a Saints loss to the Falcons. It's a long shot, Minnesota fans. I don't know exactly why Minnesota did some of the things they did down the stretch. It didn't seem like they were trying to win, but we'll see. We'll see how it is. Looking at the odds in this one, it's not a game that I am super interested in betting. It's laying 3.5 right now with Detroit, which is minus 119. I'm thinking that thing is moving out to minus 115. Yeah, still kind of teetering, but it looks like it's going to lay at 6.5. 46 seems like a high total. That's one thing I did want to bring up. 46 seems like a higher total. I'm not really sure who is going to end up playing the full game for Detroit. I can't imagine. It's Dan Campbell. I don't know what to think about Dan Campbell anymore. So to me, it's a pass. I would lean to the under. I'm not going to pull the trigger on it. Next one is Jets and Patriots. This thing is all about draft posturing. What's that? Anyways, Jets, Patriots. It's all about the draft. 2 teams that sit inside the top 10. The Jets are in a really weird spot. They're in the most volatile spot in the league as far as draft position goes. They're the only 6 and 10 team in the league. They can draft really from 5th all the way up to 12th. They really, really, really need to lose this game. And the Patriots, they sit drafting 3rd. They're likely not going to move up. but they could move back, and moving back to 5 or 6 would suck. This is a weird matchup. At this time, there's the total in an ugly weather report. It's 30. The total is 30 for those of you that don't know. Actually, I take it back. The total has moved to 29.5 in this one, and New England is laying 1.5. God bless you. If you want to bet it, this game does scream like 13-7. I am not going to officially bet it, but I would lean under. I'd lean under in a lot of these games this weekend with the just the scenarios that are in it are so weird. So much draft capital at stake. It's hard to really pick sides in a lot of these. Let's talk a game that does matter as far as playoffs go. Falcons Saints. All right, Saints fans, strap the fuck in. It's going to be a crazy day, but I'm going to start with Atlanta. They have an outside chance to sneak in with a South title. They win, Bucks lose. It's actually that simple as needing Carolina to win that game is, but it's simple, and neither game can ties. That's the only stipulation. New Orleans, a simple outcome of a win and a Tampa loss or tie. You could also tie and get in and Tampa loses, but that's obviously not going to happen. Wild card. If Tampa wins, they would need, so if Tampa loses, it's a win. No, Tampa wins. Jesus, I wrote this off an edible, and it shows. Good Lord, my grammar got ugly. Tampa, or the Saints to get in, win, and Tampa wins as well. Green Bay would need to lose or tie. Seattle would need to lose or tie as well. So you'd be watching football all day long. Your game would end about 3 o'clock, 3:20 local time, and you would be strapped in all day until the end of the Packers and the Seattle game. That's a long day. Steelers fans, Saints fans, strap in. It is going to be a very, very long day. Looking at the odds in this one, New Orleans is currently laying 3. Total is 42. I think that's right on the nose. I don't know who's going to play quarterback. I know Heineke is banged up for Atlanta. I don't know how much the quarterback matters in Atlanta at this point. I think I would have to lean Saints. It's 2 teams that I don't want to see in the playoffs. I think New Orleans is getting a lot of love here at home. It's a pass for me. I would lean under again. 42 seems like a lot for these 2 teams, especially when you don't know who's playing quarterback for Atlanta, but it's not an official play for me. Let's talk another game with a lot of playoff implication. The Jags and the Titans. Titans are obviously dead, and they cannot pick better than 8th. They're likely going to pick there they can't pick worse than 8th. They're going to pick there or 7th. The Jags win, and they get the AFC South. It's that simple. If they lose, they would then need the Broncos to lose, and the Colts, Texans, never mind. So, no, now it's just winning to get in. I'm looking at I had these notes done before the game ended last night. Now it's just winning to get in. You got to win. If you lose, you don't get in. That sucks. That's very, very funny. If the Jags somehow don't get in, for those of you that have been following me all this year, I had Jags over 10.5 wins. Talk about thinking you have something done so early for plus 150 on an alternate win total. 2 units. Unfortunate, going to be a loss. In my opinion, heavy lean on Jacksonville outright. I'm not going to lay north of a field goal with this team. They've been super inconsistent down the stretch. No reason to lay it in my eyes because Tennessee's going to muddy this game up. I really do think Braves is going to get the guys up. Maybe use the Jags as a parlay piece. I really don't hate that at all. I think I'm going to have a parlay set up for today. There's a lot of teams that are set up odds-wise where I don't want to lay that many points, but you put them together, it makes sense. So, may end up doing some parlays with the Jags. I'm not going to tease that thing through 0. I don't need the EV police all over my ass. Let's talk Seahawks Cardinals. This is a game that, again, has some playoff stake, but it's all for naught if Green Bay wins. Green Bay wins, Packers get in. But if the Packers lose, it's winning you're in for Seattle. So Seattle's not dead. They're going to be playing their asses off in this game. They would also have a couple of tie scenarios that they could get in, but we're not going to get into those. Arizona could theoretically draft second. It's likely they're going to be drafting in the 4 to 7 range, depending how things shake out. The odds in this one. This is where I get questionable again because Seattle's laying 3 on the road. Seattle's been a bad football team down the stretch. I don't think there's a team that I trust less right now than the Seattle Seahawks. It's plus 100, so there's a good chance that you're going to see minus 2.5. So you get that thing inside a field goal, you're going to creep that money line towards minus 135. You get a lot of money line play at minus 135. 47.5 feels like a good total. I think that actually goes over in this game. But I really don't think I have enough confidence to lay 3 points with Seattle against Arizona, even though it's a must-win game. Arizona, let's call a spade a spade. They beat the Eagles last week, so you can't just take that with a grain of salt. You have to look at that a little bit when you're looking at handicapping the Seattle game. But again, minus 3. It's currently sitting at plus 100. I'm thinking that's going to be minus 2.5, especially if you're using a bookie. Sorry, boys. That's just the juice that you pay when you do not have legal sports betting. But yeah, I would lean Seattle. I would lean the over. But I'm definitely not going to bet either of these teams going forward. That brings us to an interesting one. And it's funny, we got some people actually watching now. Packers-Bears. Packers-Bears. What is at stake? My sanity is at stake. If we wake up tomorrow morning and the Bears beat the Packers, it's going to feel like the ultimate version of Groundhog's Day, and I can't handle that. This happened last year. We kicked the shit out of Minnesota in Week 17. You go into Week 18 against a opponent that is not, and last year, granted, Detroit didn't know until the game actually started, but Chicago's eliminated, Detroit was eliminated, and they get to play their Super Bowl and knock the Packers out of the playoffs. I am borderline in shambles. That's why I poured a cocktail at 6 a.m. this morning. But, yeah, we'll be in the building. I'm fucking excited. And I have a not reasonable wager on the Packers. It's probably way more than I probably should have done. But, yeah, I'm not going to get into the game too much. Obviously, it's emotionally charged. I try not to do that on this show. Try to give decent input. Green Bay is moving towards 2.5 also. I got this money line earlier in the week on Bet Openly thinking that I was getting a great line. And Chicago is getting a lot of public play. Total is 45. I lean over. I won't bet it because that means that the Bears are doing something. Either that or the Packers shit on them. I don't think they're going to hang 40. But, yeah, 45 is enticing. It's ticked up a point since open. So I would lean that. And again, I'm all over the Packers. That's not a shock to anybody at all. Let's move on down to a game that does not fucking matter. Chiefs, Chargers, Easton Stick back out there again. Both teams eliminated from playoff contention. This is mostly about draft position. Teams currently drafting 9 through 16 are all within a game of each other. So we kind of a clusterfuck of mid right in the middle of the league. And it's interesting. The Chargers, talk about a team that just slid. And they're catching 3.5, and I actually feel like, they're laying 3.5, and I actually feel like they could actually cover that. As disgusting as it feels, obviously Kansas City's sitting just about everybody. But if you're the Chargers, you're probably not going to draft any higher than you're sitting right now. I kind of like the Chargers in that one. I don't want to get into it. I'm not going to give out any hard-fought picks on Chargers and Chiefs today. But we can talk a little bit about Broncos and Raiders because I do have a little bit of thought about this game. Both teams eliminated, obviously, mostly about draft position. Again, this big clusterfuck in the middle with all these teams. Both of them smack dab in the middle of it. I like Vegas. I like Vegas to cover in this game. Right now, they are laying 3. It's minus 105. Probably moving towards 2.5. But this thing opened as a pick'em. And yeah, it's gonna be ugly. You don't know who the hell's gonna play, but I feel like there's a lot more guys on Vegas that are playing for next year's team. Whereas, call a spade a spade. Sean Payton's an asshole, and he's probably already picked out his team for next year. I don't think there's a lot of Denver guys that feel the need to play for their coach. Vegas has already shown that they'll play for their coach. I do lean Vegas. You never really know what you're going to get with these matchups when they don't matter, though. It's not a game that I'm going to be fully staking on my side at all. Giants-Eagles is an interesting one. Philly's only realistic way to secure the 2 seed would be a win parlayed with an ugly Cowboys loss that we'll talk about in a little bit. Now, there is a scenario where they get the 3 seed, involves them tying. Don't feel like getting into it. On the other side, Giants, great chance for top 5. What they do with that, who the hell knows? Danny Dimes, $40 million looms, very, very large. In my opinion, looking at the line, super disrespectful. 4.5. So I don't think they're expecting Philly to play a lot of guys. I lean Birds. I'm probably going to parlay with the Birds. But every time I do lay any points against the Giants, it ends up poorly. I did it with LA last week. Luckily, I had them teased as well, so it ended up working out in my favor. But yeah, I can't lay 4.5, not with Philly. But give me a money line. Definitely going to have to use them at some capacity. Rams-Niners. We got 3 games to go. Rams-Niners, yuck. If you watch this game, God bless you. No starters are playing at all. The Rams could be the 6th seed with a victory, but if they lose, the Packers could slide on them and end up in the 6th slot. I don't know. Anybody that wants to bet this game, you got to bet it on information base only if you know something, because I don't. And I don't think a lot of people do, because this line is weird, hasn't moved a lot. And yeah, anybody betting that game, you're sharp, real sharp. Cowboys Commanders. We've teased this game a bunch. I mean, you tease a game as much as you could tease a 13-point spread. Obviously, Dallas has a ton to play for. With a win, they sneak in as the 2 seed, and they win the East. With a loss, they can win the East. A few things that need to happen. They just need to focus on finishing with a dub. The Commies, they should get the 2 pick. They could get jumped by the Patriots due to strength of schedule. It's very, very unlikely the way that that's going to shake out. They're more or less locked into the 2 seed. In my opinion, Dallas has a ton to play for, but I actually have 2 picks in this game. I don't think Dallas is going to absolutely lay the hammer like people expect. So I think the hot read this weekend is Cowboys unders. And I've got 2 of them. The first one is CeeDee Lamb, under 93.5 receiving yards. He already set the Cowboys single season receiving yards and receptions mark last weekend. He's 66 yards behind Tyreek Hill. Tyreek is playing in a must-win game on Sunday night. You wouldn't send a guy out there to try to set a record not knowing what the record needs to be. Washington also held him to 53 yards on 4 receptions earlier this season. For as shitty as Washington's been, we'll talk about their secondary in a second. You look at Dak, under 279.5 passing yards. I got a unit on that one too. Similar thought process. Why hit the gas? You're probably going to treat the second half like a bye scenario. Prior to his outburst against Detroit, it's been 4 games since he surpassed the total. And then I just mentioned this Commander secondary. Since the bye, 249, 217, 224 as far as passing yards. Purdy and Stafford were involved in that. Obviously, blowouts matter. They're not going to throw the ball while they're blowing a team out, especially when you have a playoff game looming next week. I think CeeDee Lamb under 93.5 receiving yards. Dak under 279.5 passing yards. Personally, I think both of those are good picks. And I would say if it's not something that nobody wants to have fun betting, but I would say, yes, fuck off, Paul. Bear down. Hey, my boy's coming up to my neighborhood. Maybe I'll jump him next weekend if the Bears win. Probably not. I love that, man. Let's talk the last game of the weekend. It is the best game of the weekend. Schedule makers did a phenomenal job with this one. Absolute masterclass. Buffalo traveling to Miami. What is at stake? It is the AFC East title game. For the Dolphins, it's pretty simple. Win and your division champs. Lose, you're headed to Arrowhead. For the Bills, if they lose, they need the Jags to lose. Otherwise, they're out. If the Jags win, Buffalo is either the 2 seed or they're out of the playoffs. I mean, hey, we talked about it. Saints fans, Steelers fans, you're going to have a really hard day today. Buffalo fans, it's going to be just as bad. I have no idea. I don't know how you handle that. I don't know how you can handle the difference of being a 2 seed and hosting a second-round playoff game, or you're out. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But that's it, man. My opinion on the game, from an entertainment standpoint, the Bills are laying 2.5. The total is 48. Why the hell wouldn't you just bet the over? I know that's not the sharpest play in the world, but just bet the over. 48 points is not a lot. We've seen both these teams can absolutely go crazy. I think Buffalo hung 40 on them earlier in the season. Yeah, it's an overplay. I won't play it officially probably unless I got a chase or things are going very well. We'll see how that happens. But yeah, that's it for me, man. That's all the games. Did it in under 30 minutes. That was kind of the hope. Get in before 7 o'clock. For those of you that know, I've got a 14-unit winner hanging in the balance with Washington on Monday night. That'd be the largest win of my career. So that'd be insane. Would love to have it. But thanks to everybody that tuned in. Loved having Paul in the comments. The under in the Bears game, Paul. I honestly, it's not a 44 at plus money. So it's one of those things that, so weather up here, if this would have been 24 hours ago, I don't know what it was like for you guys in Illinois, but we got fucking pelted with snow. Like wet, heavy, not heavy, just super wet shit. If it was 24 hours ago, I would agree and bet the under at 44. But Paul, the Joe Barry factor. We have Joe Barry as our defensive coordinator. He's the ringer when it comes to overs and breaking your heart. But that's pretty much all I got. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to finish my cocktail and make my girl some steak and eggs. She is sleeping. Oh, it was just snowing. All right. I'm excited. I ain't going to lie. I'm super excited about the Packer game. I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't give up on this team after the Bucs game. I walked out of the Bucs game saying some shit that you could not repeat in public. Joe Barry, I've been known to equate him to Saddam Hussein, and I'll be doing that if things go bad. But thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody that tuned in, everybody that's going to watch this. 30 minutes, quick, in and out. Let's talk picks. Let's have a fucking day. It's week 18. The NFL regular season is over. It's over. Fuck that. We got plenty of football left. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for tuning in. Cheers.